Welcome back to Boss Economics World, the only place that tells you what the guys in the corner offices are really whispering about after they hang up on the reporters. Today's headline, served up on a silver platter from the folks at Fitch Ratings, is a real work of art. Dated September 20th, 2025. The title? La Dolce Vita, Italy gets a surprise upgrade. The credit agency, in its infinite rearview mirror wisdom, has bumped Italy up to a shiny BBB+. 3 whole notches above junk. They even slapped a stable outlook on it. Champagne corks are popping in Rome. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is taking a victory lap. The markets are purring. The official story? It's a fairy tale. A story of fiscal prudence, of a stronghold government taming the beast of Italian debt, of newfound political stability. Fitch gushes about increased confidence, a strong commitment to EU fiscal targets, and ongoing reform momentum. They even took a swipe at France on the way out, downgrading them last week, basically saying, look at Italy. See? It can be done. It's a beautiful story. It's an inspiring story. And folks, it is, for the most part, a masterclass in financial misdirection. Today, we're not just going to read the press release. We're going to shred it. We're going to peel back this beautifully manicured onion, layer by excruciating layer, to reveal the eye-watering truth at its core. Because this isn't a story about an Italian economic miracle. This is a story about a European confidence game, a central bank propping up a zombie, and the terrifying fragility of a system built on narrative instead of numbers. Let's get into it. First, let's give credit where it's due. The optics are fantastic. Meloni's government has managed something her dozens of predecessors couldn't. It has lasted. In the chaotic world of Italian politics, surviving more than a couple of flu seasons is considered a mark of Churchillian stability. And yes, they are on track to get their deficit under the EU's 3% of GDP limit by next year. Bravo! Investors have fallen in love. The spread, the risk premium, the fear gauge between Italian 10-year bonds, BTPs, and the ultra-safe German bonds has collapsed. When Meloni took office in 2022, that spread was flirting with a terrifying 250 basis points. Today? It's sitting comfortably below 80 basis points. For you non-finance folks, that's like your car insurance premium dropping by 2/3 because you promised your mom you'd stop street racing. The result is a multi-billion euro windfall in lower borrowing costs for the Italian treasury. So, on the surface, Fitch is just stating the obvious. The market already priced this in. They're the guy who shows up to the party at 1 a.m. and declares, hey everyone, this is a great party. Thanks, Captain Obvious. But here's the first inconvenient truth they conveniently bury in paragraph 7 of their report: Italy's public debt is still over 130% of its GDP. Let me put that number in perspective. That's a debt mountain of roughly 2.9 trillion euros. It's a number so large it loses all meaning. It is, by a huge margin, one of the highest in the developed world. The EU average is hovering around 89%. Germany is sitting pretty at around 65%. This isn't a small problem they're working on. This is a structural, generational, soul-crushing anchor chained to the ankle of the Italian economy. Getting your annual deficit down from 4.5% to 2.9% when you have a debt pile of 130% is not fixing the problem. It's like being 300 pounds overweight and bragging that you skipped dessert last night. It's a nice gesture, but you're still one Big Mac away from a coronary. The interest payments alone on this debt consume a massive chunk of the Italian budget, crowding out productive investment in infrastructure, education, and technology, the very things you need for actual, growth. This upgrade is not a certificate of health. It's a get-well-soon card for a patient who is still in the ICU. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about the one number that no one in Rome or at Fitch headquarters wants to put in a giant headline. Because if the debt is the disease, this next number explains why there might be no cure. Italy's demographics. Folks, this isn't just a problem, it's an existential crisis playing out in slow motion. As of 2025, Italy has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, hovering around 1.2 children per woman, far below the 2.1 replacement rate. Simultaneously, it has one of the oldest populations on Earth. The median age is creeping towards 50. For every retiree, there are fewer and fewer young workers to pay into the pension and tax systems that support them. The Italian National Institute of Statistics, ISTAT, projects that by 2050, the country could lose over 5 million people, with the working-age population shrinking by a staggering 25%. So, let me ask you a simple question. Who, exactly, is going to pay off that 2.9 trillion euro debt? A shrinking pool of young workers? A nation of pensioners? This isn't a complex economic model, it's basic, brutal arithmetic. You cannot have long-term sustainable growth or fiscal health when your population is collapsing. The Meloni government can trim the deficit. It can pass all the prudent budgets at once. But it cannot reverse a demographic trend that has been decades in the making. This Fitch upgrade completely, utterly, and irresponsibly ignores the demographic time bomb ticking at the heart of the Italian economy. It's like complimenting the beautiful upholstery on the Titanic. This is where the story gets really interesting. The most delicious part of this whole affair is the contrast with France. Just last week, Fitch cut France's rating. Paris, the traditional pillar of the European project alongside Berlin, is in the doghouse. Rome, the perennial problem child, the I in the infamous PIGS acronym, is the teacher's pet. What's going on here? Are the tables really turning? Yes, but not because Italy has suddenly discovered the secret to economic dynamism. It's because the game has changed, and the referee is rigging the score. The great reversal is a story of expectations. France, under President Macron, is facing massive political paralysis. His attempts at pension and labor market reform have been met with a level of public fury that makes Italian political drama look tame. His deficit is proving stubbornly high, and his political capital is shot. The market looks at France, the supposed engine of Europe, and sees weakness, gridlock, and a failure to live up to its own high standards. Then you have Italy. The expectations for Italy were, frankly, in the sewer. When Meloni's far-right coalition came to power, the financial press was predicting Armageddon. They predicted a war with Brussels, a blowout in spending, and an exit from the euro. Instead, she's been shockingly pragmatic. She's played nice with the EU, adhered to the budget rules, and kept the populist rhetoric for the weekend rallies. So, France is being punished for failing to be perfect, while Italy is being rewarded for not being a complete disaster. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations, financial edition. But the real star of this show isn't in Rome or Paris. She's in Frankfurt, at the headquarters of the European Central Bank. The single biggest reason that Italian-German bond spread is below 80 basis points has nothing to do with Meloni's budget and everything to do with two acronyms, TPI and OMT. The Transmission Protection Instrument, TPI, is the ECB's big bazooka. It's a promise, unveiled in 2022, that the central bank will step in and buy the bonds of any country whose borrowing costs are spiraling out of control for reasons the ECB deems unwarranted. It's a nuclear deterrent against market panic. The market isn't looking at Italy's 130% debt to GDP and saying, "We're confident they can pay this back." No. The market is looking at ECB President Christine Lagarde and saying, "We're confident you will make sure they can pay this back." That sub-80-point spread isn't a vote of confidence in Italy. It's a vote of confidence in the ECB's printing press. Fitch is essentially upgrading Italy based on the strength of its sugar daddy's credit card. They are rating the credibility of the ECB's backstop, not the fundamental, standalone health of the Italian economy. And they're passing it off as a triumph of Italian fiscal policy. It's a disgrace. This brings us to the final, most cynical layer, the role of the rating agencies themselves. Fitch, Moody's, S&P, let's call them the rearview mirror brigade. These are the same institutions that stamped AAA ratings on toxic mortgage-backed securities before the 2008 crash. They were catastrophically late in downgrading Greece before the Eurozone sovereign debt crisis. Their business model is not to predict the future, it is to confirm the present, very slowly, and collect a fee for it. The market decided months ago that Italy was safe because the ECB had its back. The bond spreads collapsed. All Fitch has done is arrive late to the party and put an official stamp on a mood. They're not leading, they're following a trend set by a political institution, the ECB. Now, all eyes turn to Moody's. They're the last holdout, keeping Italy just one notch above junk. The drama. Will they upgrade on November 21st? It's being treated like a season finale for bond traders. But it's all just theater. The real decision has already been made in Frankfurt. So, what does this mean for you? If you're a finance professional, understand this rally for what it is. It is a sentiment-driven, central bank underwritten trade. It is not a fundamental story. The underlying risks, the debt, the demographics, the pathetic long-term growth potential have not gone away. They have been tranquilized by ECB liquidity. Enjoy the low volatility and the carry trade while it lasts, but do not, for 1 second, mistake this calm for genuine stability. The moment the ECB's resolve is tested by a real inflation shock or a political crisis, that 80-point spread could blow out to 200 faster than you can say contagion. If you're an ordinary person concerned about the economy, this is a perfect example of how the modern financial world operates. It is less about creating real value and more about managing perceptions and kicking the can down the road. Italy has not been fixed. It has been placed in a state of suspended animation, kept alive by the life support of the European Central Bank. This creates a dangerous moral hazard, teaching politicians that they don't need to make the truly hard, painful choices on reform and debt reduction, because the central bank will always be there to bail them out. So, Fitch has upgraded Italy. The headlines are glowing. The Prosecco is flowing. They're celebrating a victory in a battle, but they're still losing the war. The war against a mountain of debt that cannot be repaid. The war against a demographic winter that cannot be reversed. And the war against an economic model that has produced virtually zero per capita growth for 2 decades. This upgrade isn't a sign of strength. It's a symptom of a deeply fragile and artificial system where central bank promises have replaced economic fundamentals. It's the illusion of safety, the veneer of stability, painted over a structure that remains fundamentally unsound. So, by all means, raise a glass to Prime Minister Meloni and the wizards at Fitch. They've successfully managed the narrative. But keep a bottle of something stronger on ice. Because when the music of quantitative easing eventually stops, and the ECB's punch bowl is finally taken away, that 130% debt to GDP ratio and that demographic doomsday clock are going to feel very, very real. And that, my friends, is the one rating that truly matters.